So let me move my learning plan over on the side so we can look at it. Do you want my screen on your screen? Okay. We don't want to see what you're doing.
It's not that.
No.
It's the computer. Don't worry,
It's not you, it's me.
It's yeah.
it's me.
Okay, so I'm going to log into my server. And the first thing I want to work is with set account lockouts on the GPO domain. Does everybody have their server up?
No.
Okay, we'll wait. Okay, so we want to work with the account lockout policies. Where do I even find this? Where am I going to begin with? Tools, okay. Policy, PP, group policy management. Yeah, it's a group policy management. We are working with policies, but we're working specifically with group policies. And you got to play with some labs with this, is that correct? So you should be kind of familiar with where you're going. I'm going to make this bigger. So now we want to go from here. So if I want to work with account lockouts for the entire company, go to the domain. Here's my domain. Okay. And now what? Yeah, you can do a couple different things at this point. If we want to have it applied to the entire corporation, we could do the default domain policy. Anything that's done to here happens to everybody in the entire domain. That's a very, very easy way of doing it. That's one philosophy. It's just like, let's put everything in the domain, a default domain policy, and just have it happen. Document the heck out of it so we know exactly what we have off of the default or the normal default domain policy. The other idea is to create another policy, a group policy object, a GPO. And going in and saying, this is going to be my account lockout policy. That way you can enable it or disable it on certain organizational units, or you could disable it or enable it for the whole organization at any given time. Well, if it's in the default domain policy, it's going to be there all the time. If you want to get rid of the account, if you say, man, this is being a real hassle, or there's a certain situation coming up that, we had a massive password change or whatever, I don't want the accounts locked out, you'd actually have to go into the default domain policy and make all those changes back so it doesn't take effect. Being a separate group policy object just for the account lockout, you can enable and disable it very easily, turning it on and off that feature. So there's pros and cons. The con side is that every time anybody does anything, especially logging on for the first time, they have to read through all the group policies that affect them. So if you decide to have it very granular, like every single type of security options you're working with out there as a domain, as a group policy object, it's just going to take longer to boot and longer to process and whatever. Pros and cons either way. Today we're just doing the default domain policy. Just straight and simple. We already have it. We don't have to link it to anything. Where do I have to go then to account lockout stuff? So if I'm going to edit this, I right click on it, edit. There's many different ways of doing this. And like I said, this is very similar to the registry. Some of these make sense. I'm sorry?
Right click and click what?
Edit. I'm sorry. Okay, let's see if we can go back further. We have tools and then the group policy management. That brings up to manage all of our group policies. It's loading. It's already there. Go away.
Go away, quick.
Okay, so now we want to work with the default domain policy. The default domain group policy object is under the domain. So we look underneath the forest, look under the domain, and then underneath our organization. So the very first one is, it's actually a link to our default domain policy. If we right click on it, right click, edit. Once we edit it, we have all kinds of options, like hundreds and hundreds of options and sub options and sub options, and it's some things make sense and some things don't. They're just there because that's where they are. And some things it's like, oh yeah, I can kind of remember. Most of the time I can't remember. I usually have to look it up. TechNet's a great tool. Just the internet in general. Just search for the specific thing you're looking for. There's so many options in here that you couldn't possibly get through them all to figure out what they all do. And it's kind of a building thing over time. As you go to training or conferences or talk to other people in other companies, you kind of get other ideas. Like you go to a system, it's like, hey, that's really cool of how you do that. You know, how did you do that? Or you can ask them and they might tell you. Otherwise, you can look up that feature. You know, like the really common ones, and we're talking about later on, is like do not require Control-Delete. You know, walking up to a system is like, hey, I can log right in without doing Control-Delete. You can look that one up. That's a pretty easy one to look up. Or you ask them, and it's kind of a very common one. That's why they talk about it in the material we're talking about. So, account lockouts. You know, I want to set this up. Where would I possibly find this? Any idea? Okay, I'm going to look under, so I have computer configuration and user configuration. Now, aren't I looking like having the user account locked out? So wouldn't that be under user configuration? One would think, at least I would, it's actually not. It's actually a computer policy, configuration policy that you're looking at on this computer. If you log in incorrectly so many times, it's going to be locked. So it's not the user, based on the user who's logging in, of whether it's going to be locked or not. It's based on the computer that you're logging in from. So it's just the way it is, and you know, there's whatever. So computer configuration. So now underneath here, so I have policies and then preferences. Well, I know it's going to be a policy, not a preference. A preference is just, I'm going to give you the default to begin with, like your default printer is going to be the classroom printer, but you are capable of changing it. A policy, the user can change. So if I do a policy and say that's your printer, there's no option away from that. So moving down here, now I have software and Windows. So what would you choose? Windows. So we're under Windows. And now I have name resolution, script, security settings, and policy-based quality of service. So that one makes a little bit more sense. So I'm under security. And then now where? It's under account policies. Underneath account policies, I actually have a password policy. This is where I can choose enforce the password history, so it has to remember the last 24 passwords. So if you really like your password, you have to reset it 23 times to get back to your one that you really like. Maximum password age is like it's going to expire every 42 days. Because I don't want you resetting your password 23 times in the first day to get back to your favorite password, I'm going to say that you have to wait a day. So that means every 3 weeks you get back to your password that you like, I guess. I'm going to have it 7 characters long as minimum. It has to be complex. And then the last one doesn't really apply. I mean, that's more of an internal system type thing. We are talking specifically about the account lockout policy here, though. And I have 3 different things that I have to set. So the first one is the account lockout duration, and then we have account lockout threshold, and then the reset the account lockout counter after so many things. To talk about these things, the first one is the account lockout. So if you're locked out, how long will it be locked out? And if you look at the options, first of all, it's not defined. The policy is not defined, so we want to define it. And we can say for how many minutes it's going to be locked out. You can click on the explain if you want. It does tell you that the available ranges are from 0 minutes to 99,999 minutes. I didn't even do the math. I have no idea how long that is. That's a long time. So pretty much if you're saying 99,999, you're saying locked out permanently until somebody unlocks you, like the administrator. Oops, I'll go back. So we can set that to be. We can set it for anything that you want. It really depends on your corporate environment. If you have an IT staff that's ready, you call them and they can answer right away. Pretty much you're going to lock it out forever. You don't want accounts resetting automatically. What's that? 11, 11 and a half years?
You didn't do that math right. No, that's wrong. I got 11 days. Or 20
It is. Okay, back here again. Account lockout duration. The default is 30 minutes. It is nice for smaller organizations, really small IT staff where you don't have somebody on staff, or they only come in, part-time, or they're out and about, or whatever. That way, if an account is locked, it does reset itself after 30 minutes, 15 minutes. It really slows down somebody hacking into your system because you only get 3 attempts every 30 minutes. So anyway, whatever you want to put, we're not going to wait 30 minutes for it to be automatically unlocked. So anything over 10 minutes is going to work fine for the class because you're going to lock it and then have the administrator reset it anyway. So once I apply this, let's see. Oh, I need to do the other things. Let's see. It automatically it's kind of a group thing. You can't unlock the account if you don't have anything else set for the other items. So it automatically fills in the account threshold and also the account reset the lock counter. You can't have the counter less than the lockout duration. Or is it the other way around? It just won't make any sense because one would reset before it ever get triggered or whatever. The count lockout reset, it is set to 5 in this case. Obviously, well, here you can go through 0 through 999 fails. If you set to 0, the account will never be locked out. So I guess that'd be kind of the same as not enabling the feature at all. But in 999, if you're giving somebody 1,000 tries to log in your account, that may be excessive. Even 50 might be a lot. Oh yeah, go ahead, give 50 tries. I could probably go through all your pets and children and spouses and whatever, birthdays and whatever by then. But we're just going to do, in fact, for our class, I'm going to set it to 3 so I don't have to try forever to do this. One way of doing that, and this is the client side, and I think on the server 2012 there's a way of doing it from the server side, but on the client side it does eventually take effect. So let me log in correctly, and I'll show you how to force it from the client side if you're trying to test things. Uh-oh, I'm a victim. I'm a victim.
You're a victim.
Of counterfeiting. From the... Oh, I might have to run this as administrator. Let me try. What is it, GP update or GPO update? GP update. GP... Is that GP update? Up. Oh yeah, there's a P in update. So it updated the user policy, and now the computer policy is updated. And the computer policy is what I just applied to this computer. So if you log into a different computer, eventually, policies take a while. I don't know why they take a while to be updated to the computers, but they do. The policy is actually on the computer, so that information has to get from the server down to the computer, and the computer manages all this. So now that it's been updated on the computer level, I'm going to try to log in incorrectly. So I'm going to do a log off. And then I'll log in, and my password is capital P A $$ W. Oh, wait a sec. I don't know. Oh, that's not right. Okay, P A $. Oh, darn it! Not the enter key. No. Hey, come on. Eventually.
Welcome. It sits at the welcome screen for 20 minutes.
And then it says you're locked.
Yeah. It's like you couldn't make that decision right away. Well, all right, cool.
And again, the policy takes a while to apply, so you might have to do it 3, 4, 5, 6 times or whatever the first time. once it's set, it should be pretty quick. It actually sets it after 3 to the 4th time, so technically by the time that you log out. So it gives you 3 full times of incorrect. Okay, now it tells you the referenced account is currently locked out and may not be logged onto. So it doesn't stop you from logging as anybody else. So if I click OK, I'm able to switch users to go someplace else, but Alexis is not getting in. It also does not tell you how long it's locked. It doesn't say, please wait 30 minutes and try again after your account's reset. So that's one way of deterring hackers and people trying to compromise the system. But that's still just ignorance. You shouldn't have your system based on people just not knowing your settings. It should be secure enough to not actually happen. So let's take a look at Alexis's account. I'm going to go over to my server. If I go go up to Tools, Active Directory Users and Computers. I logged in as Alexis, right? Now, the account is not disabled, and this is one thing I don't necessarily like. If I disable the account, like if I disabled Anthony, where's my disable? Disable the account. It shows you that. It shows you this little down arrow. It'd be really nice if there's a graphical visualization. If I just looked at the screen, that there'd be a little red X or a little yellow triangle or something. There's no indication that the person's locked. So here, let me just enable Anthony first of all. But going back to Alexis, if you go to the account, it says unlock the account. This account is currently locked on Active Directory. So it tells you that. But it's kind of wordy, and it's not a very obvious place. So again, let me show that again. So you can't see anything from the user account, but Alexis will say, on my screen, it says my account is locked.
So you're back on administrator.
I'm on the server. I switched over to the server. I'm in Server Manager, and then under Server Manager, I went to Tools, and then Active Directory Users and Computers. Alexis called. She's telling me on her screen, it says it's locked. Now, if this took long, if I put her on hold long enough, knowing that it's 30 minutes and knowing she got locked out, I'll just put her on hold for 29 minutes. And then when I say, well, let me check, and I say, no, your account should be fine. Go ahead and try it again, and she'll log in fine. And then she'll feel foolish, and then you've accomplished your goal for the day. No, you're not. So, but you unlock the account. You can do it this way. Another way that you can do this, I'm gonna cancel at this point. Another way of doing this is, most likely, why did she get incorrect login, or her account locked?
Too many guesses on that.
Okay, why did she guess so many times?
So she doesn't know.
She doesn't know it, so she's really calling you to reset a password, not to unlock your account. She's just saying, I forgot my password. The two really go hand in hand, and they really are two different things. But if I right-click on Alexis, and then I go to Reset Password, and by the way, this is Windows has 17 ways of doing anything, including changing your time, changing your start menu, whatever. There's only one way to reset a password, and that's by going to the user and right-clicking on it and choosing Reset Password. There's out of all these tabs, Windows, scroll downs, whatever, there is no password option to change your password. You have to right-click and then reset your password. Now, if she forgot her password and you reset it, this is also by default checked to unlock the user's account. So it's kind of a one and all type thing. So you could go to the user account and unlock it, only to have her not know what it is and come back to this reset anyway, or you go right to the reset and it'll do both. It'll reset it and unlock it. So I don't want to reset it, otherwise it's another password I have to remember. Okay, here we go. Okay, account. I'm going to unlock the account. I click apply, and you say, okay, Alexis, I think I got it all set for you. Can you go try it and let me know? And then she should be able to log in. She'll let me know that she's a victim of counterfeit stuff. And I say, ask me later. And she says it's a black screen, and I tell her it's actually an energy saving screen. It uses less energy to show black pixels than colorful pixels. So, okay.
You're expired. Yeah. They'll make you.
On the reset, when you reset a password, Well, that's not going to
Well,
work.
you'll just tell them what you used, and then that they'll leave and say.
Because ours is set never expire.
Because on the account itself, we have special password never expires. Okay, now let's reset. There we go. I was going to say, it's on by default. It's just like, so yes, by default, you should always have the user must change password at next login. You should never know anybody's password. Don't ask them for the password. Don't set it and write it down somewhere. There was a company I was helping out. It wasn't the place I was working for, but just on the side or whatever. They actually had all the usernames and passwords written out on a piece of paper. So that the administrator person or like the manager would be able to get to different accounts if they needed to. It's just like bad idea.
That's not what that means.
Okay, for a user to change their own password, they can change it by doing Control-Alt-Insert is one way of doing it. Well, no, they don't do Control-Insert. They do Control-Delete. We do Control-Insert because we're in a virtual machine. So do Control-Insert, and right in the bottom says change the password. Also, one of the ones that we're going to be working on later on is about the other security policy option is enable prompt user change password before expiration. So currently, right now, today your password expired. When you log in today, it's going to say your password expired today. You have to change it. And man, my kids are sick, and I spilled milk down my shirt, and my car wouldn't start, and I couldn't find a matching pair of socks. Then I got my account locked out, and now you make me change my password. You're not in a really good frame of mind to choose a good password. And you're late for a meeting, and you're trying to get this project out or whatever like that. So that's just going to prompt you ahead of time saying, you know what, your password's going to expire in 7 days. Do you want to change it today? Oh, so it's a really bad day. Okay, then it comes up again and says, okay, you know what, your password's coming up. You might want to start thinking about it. And you have been thinking about it because in the back of your mind, it's like, okay, well, let's come up with a good password, really good, knowing that I'm going to keep it for the next 42 days. And then you can do it. So it gives you a warning ahead instead of, bam, today is your day, change it. And then that's how they would change it. Just tell them Control-Delete, and right there in the taskbar. And they can do it at any time after that 1 day increment. So otherwise, it will prompt them. Your password's going to expire. Do you want to change it? Most people don't change their password unless forced to. It's not like, today's Monday. It'd be a good day to change my password. Unless you know it's compromised. Somebody threatened you or whatever. They tickled you to get your password out or something. I don't know. For the drive mapping, if you're looking at what create, delete, replace, and update does, we're not going to get real deep into it, but it seems like replace would be a really good option to choose. If there's already a drive letter there, it's going to erase it and then put it with a new one in there. If it doesn't exist, it's just going to create a new one. So it sort of seems like to do everything we want to do. If you chose another option, it's probably going to be fine for the final, but I'm thinking just looking at this, replace might be a good option. To review all those steps as far as how to set this all up, we want to be in our group policy manager, and waited too long. And we're looking at our user configuration this time instead of computer configuration. And then we're going under, let's see, preferences, and then preferences, Windows settings. We have drive maps, and so we don't have any right now. If I right click on here, I'm going to make a new drive mapping, a new drive, mapped drive. And I guess it defaults to update. I guess I have to look at what the real difference is. I'm going to change it to replace. The location's very specific. It is the name of your share. You can browse for it. I'm just going to type mine in. It's / SRV12-2 / data. I do want to reconnect at logon by default. If it'll map if I need to. This is just a drive label. This is not the drive letter. This is just a drive label. We do want to use a specific drive letter, not just the first available one. We have to be careful about this though, because if you use, a drive letter, possibly they have like 6 internal drives and then a bunch of USB drives. They could certainly go up into this level. So you want to choose wisely. You probably want to put this a little bit higher, like maybe G or K or M or whatever, but we're just choosing F for today. This will overwrite then any other drive letters that you have, so again, just kind of be careful. And that should be all that you would have to put. Basically you're saying is, as a preference, we're doing a drive mapping of the letter F going to this location. I don't know. So I'm going to click OK here. I'm going to switch over to my Windows 8 computer, and I'm going to log in. And if I go to my file manager, I'll see my A, C, and D drive. And if I waited long enough, if I just sat here, eventually an F drive would pop up. I don't know when that's going to be or how long that's going to take. So I'm going to force the group policy update to happen. So I'm going to go to the command prompt by right-clicking on the Start button, clicking on Run, going to command prompt, and then using the command GP for group policy update. And I'm going to, and there's lots of commands you can do, but this is the forcing of that update to happen. And if all goes well, within a couple seconds, I should have an F drive, which I do. Just sort of pops up. Another way of doing it, most likely, when you log out and log back in, it'll read a new policy as well, so I guess you could have done it that way. So if you don't want to go to the command prompt and do command prompt things, just log out, log back in. I now have an F drive, which is a lot cleaner for users than, oh yeah, go to networks and then under server, choose data. It's no, go to your data, your F drive. We also labeled the data, so you can also refer to that way. Go to your data drive, and now I'm in sales, obviously, because I have access to sales, and I must be the sales manager, because I have access to the sales manager folder as well. So it makes it a lot cleaner, a lot easier. Before we had this feature of preferences, we had to do scripts, login scripts, which ran a sequence of commands, and then you had to use the net command to map drive letters and whatever, and there's a lot of fun. This is pretty slick though.
A lot of fun.
Questions or comments on the drive mapping part? Okay, we need to do a couple different things. So we're just watching for right now. Here's Windows 7. Here is Server 2012. These are virtual machines. They're sitting inside VMware Workstation, and VMware Workstation gives us all kinds of really, really cool features and functions. One of them is this sits on top of a real PC with a real operating system with real printers. So your classroom computer, I don't know what mine is, it's supposed to be like L119-0, I think. It's not, it's 11, just like that one. But it has a real computer, real connected to the classroom computer. Running VMware Workstation and having all the tools in there link automatically several, I'm sorry, I should go all the way up, several different properties. One of them is the printer. So purely by being a device, a virtual machine in your environment, you're automatically going to get all of your local machines' printers. So therefore, in class, let me just show this. So on my, let's switch to my server. So on my server, without doing anything at all, and I go to Control Panel, and I'm going to switch my view to Small Icons, and I'm going to go to Devices and Printers. I haven't done anything, and I already have the classroom room computer. Now, if I took this home, and I looked in there, I'd automatically have my local brother printer, or whatever it's going to be on my local computer from there. So that's a really cool feature overall. It kind of makes things easier. So if you decide to put another, like Windows 7, Windows 8, you can print without doing anything through your virtual machine to your local printer. We're working with print services today and setting up a print environment. We don't want that. We want to configure the entire environment from top down. So we need to go back. Nope, that's not it. It's this. We need to go back and get rid of these. We don't want those printers there. We want to set these up individually and have a complete control over these things. So to get rid of those connections, I'll walk you through this. So we go to our virtual machine, and I'm just going to do it on my server. It's the exact same thing on your desktop as well. We can go up to VM, and then Settings. And under VM settings, we have this printer right here. That doesn't mean that you can print to a printer. It means this device allows the virtual machine with VMware tools to print to any printer configured on your host. You are the local room computer is the host. You are the guest. And we don't want that feature. Now, we could do it two different ways. We could just disable this, whatever. I'm actually going to click remove. Get rid of that feature altogether. I have to tell you to do this first before we power on the machine. Shoot. So we have to power off, or we can disconnect. I think it's cleaner to do if we disconnect. If we actually remove it. So let's shut this down and then do it. I want to tell you this at the beginning of class, and I didn't before you started anything. Yep, go ahead and shut yours down. It's just cleaner. It's better this way. Then we want to edit this. And now we want to remove the printer. So now there's no more connections. When I start up my machine and I go back under printers, I shouldn't have my L119, my local printer anymore. We're just removing the whole printer line on our settings. You're going to also want to do that from the client, so you can bring your client down, remove the printer object, and then bring it back up. Knowing you're going to need to do that, it's probably something that you want to do like the first thing that you do when you're like creating virtual machines. You're probably going to want to create new virtual machines for your final. In fact, I'm probably going to have you do it in class.
You can create the servers too.
So basically you can make the machine.
So once again, before you start your virtual machine, which I was trying to do before, VM, settings, just remove your printer completely. That way when it starts up, it's not going to automatically find your local one and embed it into your virtual machine. We want everything standalone and separate. Now that I logged back in under devices and printers, hopefully I don't have my... Oh, it needs to be probably installed automatically. Who knows? Can I remove it? Go away.
Done.
But it should be automatically created at least, so... just make sure you don't have anything underneath your two machines. If one's still there, it's kind of a persistent one for whatever reason. I'm looking for something. Control panel.
I have 18 laser series PLC.
I do?
No, I do.
Go ahead and delete it. So if you see any printers in there, just delete them as well.
Even the document writer. So this was
No. Just if you see any classroom ones, like HP, anything, go ahead and delete it.
it's done. Permanent.
Okay, moving along. What we want to do now is actually, a multi-step process. We have a server, and then we have a workstation, and then we have a printer. What we want to do is set up, and what you could do, is probably most of you know, is that from your workstation, you can print directly to your printer using IP printing and that kind of stuff. That gets rid of all the advantages of print services, though. When you go through a server, you get all kinds of advantages. Now, there's some disadvantages because now they can lock you down as far as when you can print and which printers and whatever. And so you really want to control of what people can do on their local machine through group policy objects, of whether you want to allow them to print locally, directly or not. We're not going to allow this. We're going to get rid of that. And we want to have the server control everything. So all the requests for printing from all the workstations should go through the server. And then the server allocates where that's going to go with whatever different printers. And there's, built into there's redundancy. So if one is down, it can print to a second one. It can distribute large print jobs, different queues. And there's all kinds of stuff. We're not getting into any of that this semester. Next fall, we certainly will, very in-depth with lots of different configurations. So realize that everything we've done, we're doing again, but in a lot more detail. So anyway, this is what I want to do. In order for the printer, just like any other services that we want to work with, we need to enroll or add the role and feature to that. And we want to do print services on here. So once we add print services on here, we're then going to, so that's for step 1. Step 2 is configuring the printer that it wants to go to. And then step 3 is going to the workstation and pointing it to the server and finding all that. Ideally, what's going to happen is that there's going to be a document on that device. It's going to get sent to the, hopefully I can move it, come on. It'll get sent to the server routes it to the printer, and it should come out. Ideally, that's the point. If all goes well, that's what's going to happen. So making sure that all your network connection is right, because this is really on 2 different networks. This is on 168.118.0 network, and this is on a 172.16.192.0 network. So we better make sure that all of our routing stuff is right, all of our default gateway stuff is right, otherwise you'll never get the printer. If you can't get the printer, you can't print. So, okay, so I'll walk you through these different steps. The first step is installing the printer services. So the first step is going to be setting up the service. So it's like any other services, we want to be on the server and server manager, and then choosing add roles and features. When we click add roles and features, it comes up with the generic first screen, which some of you may have checked to skip. But the next screen says, it's going to be a role-based feature on one of our local machines. This is my server 12-2 server. You probably have 2 of them on there. I only have 1, sorry. But you're going to install it on 12-2 or whatever you name your server. Actually, they have different naming for the final. It's going to be like DC1 and DC2. This can all be done in DC1. Click Next on here, scroll down. Well, actually, you don't have to scroll down. Just choose down Print and Document Services. Print and Document Services. As soon as you click on it, another one pops up, another window pops up. These are additional things it wants to install, which is perfectly fine. Just like Active Directory. You can't just install this. You need this and this and this. So we're going to do all those things. We click Add the Feature. So we did Print and Document Services, the additional features that I wanted, and then I click Next. It's nothing additional there. It's pretty much all next. For this year, we're only choosing print services. We will be getting into like LDP and internet printing or IPP next fall. But for today, it's just a very generic print services. We're printing from the client to the server to the actual printer. Clicking Next. It doesn't require a restart, but maybe if I miss something, just restart if I need to. And I click Install. It's a pretty small installation. overall, I mean, there's not a big ton of features to it. And it's done. Its installation succeeded, so it really didn't take that long at all. This is on a different drive, but I really don't think it's going to be that much slower on yours. Clicking close when you're done. You now have print services on the left-hand side.
Yeah, because you're going really fast.
Under tools now, you'll have a print management console. So it's a whole new print management that was not there before. I should have showed that to you before. Otherwise, it's like, oh, I think that was there before. You're just tricking us, you know. And now you have a whole different window in here. There's a couple ways of working with this. One is working with the drivers. Oh, I'm sorry. We have to go into the print servers first. So we now have a brand new print server, and it's called Serve 12-2, whatever your server name is. In some organizations, they'll set up a separate server just for printing, especially high volume places, managing all the printers in the company, you know, what tasks are coming in, where they're getting distributed to, and again, there's a lot of really cool things for it. So, but this is just our print server. Underneath here, the two main areas we're working with is drivers and printers. Now, we could just add the printer immediately for whatever reason, and I still have to figure this out, but they're recommending doing the drivers first. So you want to go in and add the drivers to the driver pool and then going back and doing the printer. I haven't seen a big difference of doing the printer and having the driver automatically, but we'll do the way that's recommended. So underneath drivers, we're going to see the things that are already in the system, and these are pretty much non-printing things. Nothing actually ends up on a piece of paper with any of these. These are just internal document management type things. We want to add a driver. The classroom printer is an HP 4200. To add the driver, we can just right click and choose Add Driver. And then go through the wizard. If we know what our processors are going to be for our systems, we can choose multiple ones. We know that we're going to be using Windows 8 64-bit, so I'm just going to choose the 64-bit option here. And again, if you have 32-bit out there, then choose both. It's not a big deal. Now it's going to ask you for your printer, and I'm going to choose an HP LaserJet 4200. And actually, I'm trying to think if there's a... Let me just double check really fast. This is a 4100. Okay. I was hoping we could do a PCL printer, but we're going to choose the 4100 series PS for PostScript driver class. The 41s, 42s, and 4300 series, they're really all the same drivers. There's not a huge difference at all. They're all going to work. But we'll choose a specific one, HP LaserJet 4100. And then I click Next. Now, these are the ones that are built in. If you have a newer printer or another driver, then it's just, I have the disk. And it's going to, you choose, this is what it is. Now it's my HP 39,000, whatever. And so just click Next and Finish. All that does is put that driver and make it available on the system. Now when the server goes to install a printer, it's going to use that driver. And then when the client goes to install the printer, it's also going to use that driver. So you have a lot of control over which drivers get pushed out to the client. And that means that they can't install anything else. It's just that's the only driver they get. So that's part of the security stuff. Now we go to the printer part, and we want to add a printer. And you can search the network for the printer and scan for it. Otherwise, you can add it by TCP IP address. And we're going to do that route for today. So we're going to do it by TCP IP address. And all we need is the IP address of the printer. We can do it two ways. One is walk over the printer and look at it. And it's labeled right on it. And it is 172, 16, 192.117. By the way, the last octet is based on the room number. This room used to be 117, but they haven't renumbered the printer to be 119. So that's where you get the 117 from. So you're going to choose the host name, and as soon as you choose the host name, it's going to say, oh, I figured out what you have here. Now the printer name is not a very good printer name. I mean, it's a very long, whatever, non-meaningful name. Making it something more meaningful like L119-HP4100 is a little bit more descriptive. It tells me where it's located and what kind of printer it is. So I can tell if it's in 117, 121, and then if there's multiple printers in the classroom, oh, that's the color one, and that's the black and white one, or that's the dot matrix one, you know, if you really wanted those. Okay, let's get back to this. So the printer is 172, 16, 192, 117. Back to my setup. Okay, and this next step is also, do you want to share this printer? Well, of course I want to share the printer. That's kind of the whole point of having a printer on a server, is to share it. So I'm going to change the share name to be the same thing.
Do you want it to be 119?
Right, and you can name this anything you want, but a really good typical description is location and type. And even if you don't like the HP 4100, like what's an HP 4100? Then put laser printer, black and white laser or something. So location and type. And you can put more comments down here as well. I'm not going to do that. I think most should be where the name. Okay, moving along. I click next and finish. Print test page. I guess typically that wouldn't be a bad idea. Do not do that for class. There'd be no way of identifying who's printing where though. So I'm going to click finish. And I should now have this printer. If I click under printers, I have this document writer, this XPS document writer, and I also have my L119. We want to make another change under this printer though. This is fine. We can, you know, it's shared. We can access it. But if we right click on it and go to properties, and then under sharing, we have one more thing which will make it even easier for people to find it, and that is by listing it in the directory. Now, that's not just a general company directory, it's Active Directory. So I'm going to list it in Active Directory as an actual object. So, and if you forget that step, that's okay. You can still get around it. It's just going to be a lot harder finding your printer. So I click OK there, and now it's shared, and it's listed in Active Directory, and everything's set. Going over to my Windows 8 computer now, and I'm in, you know, I'm just in Control Panel. As soon as I log back in, oh come on, what am I doing? There we go. No, Windows 8. There we go. It wasn't giving me my login screen. So I'm in Control Panel Devices, and I want to add a new printer in my Windows 8. Now, you can do this with Windows 7. It's going to need a compatibility thing added, but we'll just do it from 8 for right now. It's going to be a little bit easier to work with. So add a printer. And by adding a printer that's listed in the directory, it should show up right there. So that's as easy as you can get. The person looks at it, it's just like, oh yeah, that's my room. Yep, that's the printer I want to print, and that's all the person needs to do. They don't need to figure out drivers. They don't need to figure out anything else. It's just, I'm just going to install that. So it automatically does the driver. It does everything for you. So it makes it really easy for the user to be able to install it if they're allowed to do it. I'm going to do the test page. No one else do a test page for today. Well, actually, no one do a test page. And you should be working with, I don't know, do we still have Notepad? We still have Notepad, good. Notepad, putting your name in here, put your name in, file, print. It should automatically default to your L119 printer. And again, as I hit print, what should happen is that that document is coming from your computer to the server, being processed from the server down to the printer. And that means that you have all your printer configuration setting, and in our case it also means that our network configuration is all set as well. So let me just double check.
What kind of printer do you have again?
HP 4100. And I have my name on mine, so I am successful. Don't try to print directly from your local computer to the printer. Don't just say, well, I'll just add a printer and type in the IP address. Yes, it can be done, but that's not what we're doing in the class at all. And that it's something that I'll most likely be checking pretty closely, making sure that you're adding the print queue on the print server and not a direct connection from your client to your printer. So don't like, oh, I forgot how to do it. I'll just kind of sneak in there or whatever. It's probably something I'm going to check pretty closely. So,
That you're just going to Windows 8 and whatever.
right. And I'll be able to tell from Windows 8, if I go to Windows 8, it's going to, under printers, I had it up. It's in the back here somewhere. This is how it's going to look. It's going to say on server 12. If it says L119 on 172.16.182.117, then you're going to direct printer. So, okay, I went 6 minutes over on the printer part. Questions, comments, and then take a quick break, and then we'll come back for the review. For the printers, we can. They are done per person. So if Alexis logs in, installs the printer's there for Alexis. If Joshua logs in, the printer's not there, and you have to install. It's per user. To have it done automatically, just like we have the drive letters happening automatically, we can also have printers installed automatically. So I'm going to walk through that process. It's pretty much the same thing as your drive mapped letters. This will show up on your final, so you might want to pay attention, or at least take notes, and then follow up later on. So if I'm on my server, under Server Manager, how to add the printer to all of your clients automatically. So we're going to have the shared printer, and it's just like our drive letter. So we're going to go to Tools, and then we're going to go to Group Policy Management. And again, we're just dumping everything in the default domain policy. This might be another one of those things that you might want to have separate, a printer policy or whatever. But we'll just dump everything underneath here. And we'll put Edit. And this will be a User Configuration Preference under Windows Settings. So again, it's under the default domain policy, user configuration, preferences, and then Windows settings. Under Windows settings, we have a control panel subset section, and underneath there we have a printers. So it's going to look very similar to that drive mapping one where we have nothing currently. We're going to right click and do a new. We want to add a shared printer automatically to everybody's desktop. And actually, let me put my screen back on your screen in a window. That might be easier to see. I'm seeing some people squinting from the back of the room. Everybody but Becky. Okay. So again, I'll just back up a step. So it's under default domain policy, user configuration, preferences, Windows settings, and then control panels. Actually,
No, not Windows settings.
I thought it was underneath there. I'm sorry. It was a long drop down. I thought it was actually under there. So it's just under control panel settings and then printers. So I apologize. Good correction. So under printers, we have no printers defined as a preference under a group policy object. I want to add a new one, and I'm adding a new shared printer. It defaults to update. I'm just going to leave it as update. I'm still trying to explore some of that. I can browse for the path if I want to, and it shows me the printer name on the bottom automatically, or I could just type the whole name in. I'll just do it this way. I want to set this printer as my default printer, and it says only if a local printer is not present. No, I want this to be default even if you do have a local printer. I'm just saying that's the way it's going to be. Anything else? No, I'm just going to click OK on here. And so now that's going to be an update. Let me switch over to my Windows 8 computer. So under Windows 8 right now, I got logged out again. I don't have any printers, so I can't print. If I go to the Windows command prompt again, just like before, in order to get the... I can't type and talk. Hang on, 1 second. Just the same way of getting that F drive to pop up automatically, it will eventually show up, but to have it happen now, I can do a GP update force. It removes my default printer, got rid of the check mark. It adds the new printer, and it makes my default. So the user doesn't have to do anything. They don't have to choose add. They don't have to click on anything at all. It's just there for them. Now, this actually, as I think about this, as we're talking a little bit more in depth than you really need to, this would not be a great default domain policy, because that means everybody in the entire company will print to that one printer. You're going to want separate policies and then link them with different organizational units. So you'd create a sales printer policy and link it to the sales department and print to the sales printer. You want the accounting to go to the accounting department and so on. Yes?
The default will be for each division, right? You can change each person's default. They're in different groups. Right?
Yeah, right now we're just going to do it for everybody, but, you know, and again, we're making it as simple as possible for today, and you're right, you would have each individual policy, right.
Doesn't work on that. Doesn't work on Windows 7.
And Windows 7, don't worry about Windows 7 on this. There's a compatibility driver that we'd have to install on there, and again, just to make it as simple as possible, we'll just do all the 8 stuff and, you know, whatever. I'm trying to think. Actually, I'm talking about this for user. I think I can do this on the computer. I could do this on the computer as well, so then it'd be actually installed on that computer, and then you do it by the computers based in the department. So either way, it's going to work either way. So however you want to do it for the final, as long as it happens automatically that the printer's there. So, and again, we're going to get more in depth into this next fall. Questions or comments on anything we've talked about today? The review, the group policy objects, or the printing system? As just, again, sort of talking out loud, thinking out loud, it would actually be better to put the printer preference here, because the computer's in the accounting department, not necessarily the user. Because if I walk to a different department, it would be in the, I would print to my old printer still. It depends what you want to do. So either way. So we're going to review the final now. With no other questions, learning plan. So as a review, your exam is 420 and 427. 5-4, there's no class. Depending on what your exams look like, that may be, we'll see you. That may be the week that you'll be granted an opportunity to earn extra points back. I did that the midterm because of extenuating circumstances. I may or may not do it this time. Do not count on it, saying, oh, I don't have to do great on this. I can always review it. That may not be an option. I will consider that after I see everybody's exams, but realize there may be a potential for you to earn extra points back, potentially. So, and then the last one is review, making sure, you know, we clean things up or whatever, and have a potluck. It's sort of an end of year celebration. So, okay, I was talking about something else though. Oh, the test. And I lost it. It's back here somewhere. That's not it. Here it is. Okay, servers. Install Windows Server 2012 R2 on 2 computers. You shall name them DC1 and DC2. Those are the names. You figure out the IP address and then set the correct time zone. Make DC1 the domain controller for a new gopa.com domain. DC2 is also a domain controller, but you'll be adding it to the existing gopa.com. You've done this 3 times, I think, so far, so it should be pretty easy. Questions or clarifications? Okay. The clients install, you already have it. Well, if you don't have it, then you have to install it. But I'll give you the option of having it ahead of time. The computer name shall be Win81-1. You will join the gopa.com. On the Windows 8.1 client, you'll also install RSAT and make sure that you can administer the gopa.com domain from the Windows 8.1.1-1. That's a confusing name. Is that going to be confusing if I just take it that way? It's not Windows 8, but You kind of okay with that? Okay, good.
Does it matter if you want
It's not going to really matter. No.
okay.
So it's just
Just
it was a last minute change. So, anyways, but make sure that you can administer it from that Windows 8 1-1 computer. You'll have a Windows 7 computer. Its name shall be Win 7-1. You'll also join the domain.
You would not be able to administer them.
No, we're not doing RStat on there because it's a different tool, and it can only do 2008 because it's from that level on down. It's a whole.
Yeah, we
Anyway,
went through that a couple
yes.
weeks ago.
Jordan.
So can we print out this one page?
Oh yeah, definitely. You can print it out. You can actually copy it. You can make a copy in Google Docs, and then you can put your own notes in between each of those steps. Whatever you want. You can cut it up, slice it, chop it, color it, highlight it. Absolutely, you will definitely want to print this out. You can keep this electronically. And I'm a very electronic person overall with documents. This is something I'd probably print out. So I can, whatever you want to do. The organizational units. Create organization units for all of the departments in the GOPA organization. Include sub-OUs for sales and operations. Now, there were some questions on this. And the intention is that you create an organization unit for each of the departments, or all, each maybe would be clear. Each of the departments, each of the 7 departments in the GORPA organizational unit. Are there 7? I think there's 7, or there's 6. We're not doing Arthur Anderson.
Yeah, so we're not doing that.
So it's 6? Oh, it is only 6. Okay, 6. These are organizational units. We don't have a shared organizational unit. And then include sub-organizational units for sales and operations, such as East and West, and then operations is first, second, and third.
Oh, the shifts, yes. I
Shifts.
forgot about that, yeah, okay.
Are we
That
doing,
clarified what I meant.
are we doing accounts receivable and accounts payable? or
No, no accounts receivables or payables. No Arthur Anderson.
You don't like Arthur? Why you
Arthur
fan?
Anderson. I don't know, something like that. Whatever. Okay, is that clear?
Yes.
I mean, should I put the shifts? Shifts and regions. Include sub OUs for sales regions and operations shifts?
Yes.
Okay. I'm surely not trying to trick you. It's not like, oh, you missed that word, you lost 10 points. It's do you know the skill? So do you have it? Okay. At the end of this activity, you will demonstrate to me, well, not the end of this activity, at the end of the exam, when you're all done, these are some specific tasks that I'm going to have you do. I'm still going to check other things. I'm going to check this, check that, but I will most likely also have you create an OU, rename that OU, move that OU, and then delete that OU. Things that you should know how to do, and if not, practice. But, that's what you should do. Okay? Users. Create all the users in GOPA
You're going to be...
except Arthur
We're
Anderson.
not demonstrating this.
You're not demonstrating this. This is your doing. You determine the usernames and the passwords. I don't care. Just remember that you're the one that has to type them in. So you just make it simple and consistent. Select the following account restrictions. Olivia can only log on from Windows 8.1. John can only log in from Windows 7.1. Hannah can only log on from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. Anthony's account is disabled, and Jessica's account will expire at the end of the year. You will demonstrate the ability to create a user, rename a user, move a user, and delete a user. In addition to logging in as possibly some of these people, but these are extra things. So you'll have to prove those things. Prove the requested account restrictions. show me that John can only log in from Windows 7 and not from Windows 8 and whatever I ask you. So it's kind of open-ended. Just make sure you have it done. Groups. Create a group for each department, each of the 6 departments in GOPA. Make a sales group, an accounting group, and whatever. Put all the employees in their appropriate department group. Create a group for each department manager. Note the president is considered a department manager. Put all the managers in their appropriate department manager group, and then create a company managers group that includes all the department manager groups. So in this case, I'm telling you how to do it. I left it really open on the midterm, and it all counted. This time I'm telling you specifically, everybody goes in all the departments, the manager goes in the manager group, and then all the managers are joined, the manager groups are all joined underneath a major a company manager group. So it's specifically that way. At the end, you'll create a group, you'll add a person to a group, you remove a person from a group and then add another person to a group, rename the group, move the group, and delete the group. So those are just basic management type things. Obviously, if you have people up here, you know how to add and remove people from groups, but and I might want to see it. File system, install a second drive in your server. The drive letter shall be D. Volume name will be data. Create a directory for each of the 6 departments. A manager's folder in each department for that department manager. You'll also create a shared folder. Within the shared folder, a manager's folder for all of the company managers. So you create those 4 directories, 4 sets of directories. You're going to then secure each folder so that each group will have an appropriate access to each folder. And appropriate access means if I'm in HR, I shouldn't have access to the accounting folder. Reminder, non-manager employees should not be able to access department or corporate manager folders. I should put department manager or corporate manager folders. So even though I'm in sales, I should not see the sales managers folder. Okay. At the end of the you'll demonstrate that you'll log in. I missed the step. I'm sorry. Ensure users will not be able to see folders they do not have access to. So even though you don't have access to sales, I shouldn't even be able to see it. And then also create a share for the data volume for all users to use. You'll then show that by logging in and being able to have access to the appropriate folders. If I see folders I shouldn't, or if I have access to folders I shouldn't, or I don't have access to things I should, that's where you're going to start losing points. So try them. Practice. Practice, practice. Group policies. Set up and test an account lockout on GOPA domain so the user's account is locked after 3 invalid attempts. This is specific on here to 3. Set the default password policy to include remember the last 15 passwords. Force passwords to be changed every 7 days. Also, you're going to do the same things we did in class. Display user information about the session is locked. Enable do not display last username. Enable do not require control delete. Use the message for the user attempting to log on as I can do this. I'm almost done with this final. Enable prompt user change password before expiration. Enable force log off when login hours expire. In addition to that, set up and test drive map policy preferences to have the F drive point to the data share. You did that in class. It worked really, really well. So it's going to be included on the final. To show that, you're going to log in incorrectly, and then you're going to unlock the locked account as the administrator. Finally, with printers, note on each VM, disable the VMware pass-through printing feature, and I showed you how to do that by removing printing. You may want to, even though it's like listed last, you may want to do that right up front before you even begin the exam. Just turn it off right away. Just an idea. Configure the entire print system so you can print from, we're going to skip Win 7, and just do Windows 8. So you can print from Windows 8, have the printer automatically configured as the default printer on your clients, and then ultimately the test is print for me. So that's pretty straightforward. This is the last thing I would have talked about. If you're confused about it or want notes on it, I'll try to post this video. Otherwise, please stop by and do a review and practice it. You have a whole week to practice. If we have questions at the beginning of class next week, I'll be happy to entertain some of those, but a limited number because people are going to want to come in and get started as soon as possible.
Or do
Okay.
you want us to do all of that?
Do all of it. Do all of it, and then at the end of the exam, you'll demonstrate different things to me.
Okay, so you
So
don't have to
I
do
just
that.
wanted, it's probably may not have been laid out the best. I was going to put them all together at the end. I just wanted to put them together so that you're thinking conceptually like, okay, I'm working with groups. Do I know how to do this? Okay, I do or I don't.
Yeah.
So-
I got you. I just wanted to make sure that
Yep.
we